Hello, in this video, we'll be speaking about government controlled entities. Government and controlled entities comes under article number 6 of the Corporate Tax UAE. So let's see what the government controlled entity talks about. Now, what is government controlled entities in the UAE? A government owned corporation, it is nothing but a government owned corporation, is a legal entity that undertakes commercial activities on behalf of an owner government. So basically, if I can think about this Amir centers, Tashil centers, okay, these are a government-owned corporation, okay, but it is undertaking on behalf of the government uh, some commercial activities. Second point, government-controlled entities are juridical person that are directly or indirectly wholly owned and controlled by one or more government entities and are listed in a cabinet decision. So basically, these entities are wholly owned and controlled by one or more government entities. And the most important thing is these should be listed in the cabinet decision. Then only this will be called as the government controlled entities. Now, the third point, government controlled entities need to be wholly and owned, controlled by a government entity. Such entities may be set up where for reasons for accountability or management. These entities need to be legally separated from the government entity. Okay, let's move to the next slide. Now, let's see what are some examples. Now, I've listed few examples. There may be many more examples. Just for understanding's sake, I have listed few examples over here. Now, what are the government control entities? Few examples: Abu Dhabi Ports, DP World, Dubai Silicon Oasis, Dubai World, Emirates, Etihad, Fly Dubai, Ras Al Khaimah Media Free Zone, Medical Free Zone, Sharjah National Oil Corporation, and many more. Let's move to the next slide. Now, are the government controlled entities exempted? We all know government entities are automatically exempted, but what about the government controlled entities? Are they exempted? Yes, they are exempted, but again, they should be listed in cabinet decision and they should conduct mandated activities. So let's see the first point. If these are listed in the cabinet decisions and conducts a mandated activity. Second point, a mandated activity is any activity conducted by a government controlled entity in accordance with the legal instrument establishing or regulating the entity that is specified in a decision issued by the cabinet. Not all activities of the government controlled entity would be automatically be considered as mandated activities. So basically, you'll have to go and see the cabinet decision. What is the mandated activity? Now, let's see what is the mandated activity. Let's speak about mandated activity itself. Now, for an activity to be considered as mandated activity, it must be an extension of the government entity's primary function. It should be the extension of the government entity's primary functions and duties, and the income derived from the mandated activity must be ultimately be credited to its own account or to the account of any other government entity. So, mandated activity should be an extension of the government entity's primary function. And whatever the income is derived from the government entity, it should be credited back to the government entity itself. Second point, a mandated activity may include activities performed by the government controlled entity that service no independent function and are necessary for the performance of the primary activities or the activities of the government entity. So basically, the mandated activity may include activities performed by the government controlled entities that service no independent function and are necessary for the performance of the primary activity or activities of the government entities. When a government controlled entity is subject to corporate tax, where a government controlled entity undertakes other businesses. So first point, where a government controlled entity undertakes other business activities aside from the mandated activity. So if these business activities are not mandated activities, then only at this point of time they'll be subject to the corporate tax. So the resulting income will be within the scope of the UAE corporate tax. Separate financial records must be kept so that the taxable income may be calculated from the account. Now again, we all know that when once your entity becomes exposed to the corporate tax, you need to maintain separate financial statements, follow the accounting standards, which is IFRS. Again, the 50 million rule applies over here. If your revenues are more than 50 million in a year, so that means you will have to follow the full IFRS. If your revenues are less than 50 million, then you may require to follow IFRS for SMEs, right? So the second point, it will be treated as a separate and independent business for corporate tax purposes. The government control entity must maintain financial statements for the business separate from its other activity. Again, any transaction which happens between the entities, then again you're exposed to the arm's length principle. Related party transactions, which will be speaking more under Article 34, where a government control entity has more than one businesses and that is not mandatory activities, then again you may elect for a single taxable. That means you can try to form a tax group. Okay. Now, government control entity and other business accounting standards. Okay. Now again, if a government control entity, okay, if those entities are listed in a cabinet decision, if it does a mandated activity, then again you're exempted from corporate tax. So once you're exempted from corporate tax, then you don't need to follow the specified accounting standard by the corporate tax, which is IFRS. But if your government control entity is not listed in the cabinet decision, or if it does not conduct a mandated activity, then obviously you will have to follow the accounting standard, which is what? IFRS. So a government control entity which conducts a mandated activity may use the accounting standard, which is IFRS. Where a government control entity undertakes other accounting standard. I'm sorry, here you don't have to follow IFRS, but here in this point you will have to follow IFRS. Where a government control entity undertakes other business activities aside from the mandated activity, the resulting income will be within the scope of the UAE corporate tax is required to use IFRS or IFRS for SMEs to prepare the financial statements for the taxable activity. Now let's see some example of government control entity. Now, the first one, a government control entity that undertakes a mandated activity. Company R is incorporated in Abu Dhabi and is wholly owned and controlled by the Abu Dhabi Department D. Company R is listed in cabinet decision as a government controlled entity along with its mandated activities. Company R does not conduct any other business activities. So Company R and all of its activities are listed in cabinet decision. The entity will be exempt from corporate tax and will not be required to register corporate tax. Second one, a government control entity that undertakes both mandated activities and non-mandated activities. Company S is an entity wholly owned and controlled by the Department D in Sharjah. The entity conducts mandated activities and is listed in cabinet decision as a government controlled entity. Company S also conducts non-mandated activities. As Company S conducts non-mandated activities, these business activities will be taxable. Company S will be required to register for corporate tax, and any income earned and relevant expenses incurred for the mandated activities will be exempted from the corporate tax. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video.